And so that's a little bit of what I want to share today is how do we get out of the individual high-profile cases, the one-off incidents that often dominate the nightly news and headlines, and actually look to the systems behind it that drive those headlines. So with that, you know, we talked yesterday, Walter and Carol both mentioned how much people overestimate crime. That crime is going up even when the statistics tell us it's going down. There's a 538 study that asked people how likely they thought they were that they would be the victim of a robbery, and most people said somewhere upwards of 15% likelihood. Turns out the actual likelihood is 1.2%, so that's how much we are overestimating that crime can happen and can happen to us, even though the likelihood is rare. And there's an important thread running through that, though, that shapes our perception of crime, and that's emotion. And we all have an emotional response that we want to be safe. Doesn't matter how you vote, how old you are, the color of your skin, where you live, we all want to be safe. And that's why this issue is forever a kitchen table issue, and people are incredibly sensitive to the perception of crime and less so to the statistics because that feeling is just front and center, doesn't totally matter what the data is. Now, this piece of research that came from Arnold Ventures and Walter, who was here last night, is one of the folks behind this great work. What we know about incarceration is this. It is actually a bad investment for public safety. And the research has shown sort of definitively that even 24 hours in jail makes a person more likely to be arrested in the future. So if you took that same case and somebody was not sent to jail, they were released, their case might still be pending, but they are less likely in the future then to be arrested again and to be involved again in the criminal legal system. Why? Because even 24 hours in jail actually results in the likelihood of losing your job, which is what keeps people stable. For a lot of people who are already on the margins and might be living in, say, a shelter or unstable housing, that becomes even more unstable after 24 hours in jail. And it also triggers other consequences, like if you have children and you are away from them for several hours, 24 hours, that's when the government and things like the Administration for Children's Services get involved to investigate your family. So there's really concrete consequences, and that research I think is fascinating. If that came out every time we're talking about somebody who is currently in jail, and we're saying something just about the system overall, and here's what we know about the impact of jail and incarceration. So there are core segments of our communities for whom this issue is front and center and most important. And here's what else we saw. We did a post-election exit survey, and for those of you who cover that intersection of crime and public safety as well as politics, you'll know that there was roughly $157 million spent over the campaign season in the midterms on ads, I would say fear-mongering about crime and safety, and certainly attacking mostly Democratic candidates for being quote-unquote soft on crime. And we wanted to find out what impact did that have on voters and their perceptions around crime, safety, and especially their support for justice reform. And so we asked them, would you, on balance, having to pick one of the two, would you support an approach to crime and safety that is fully funding the things that create safe communities in the first place, like good schools, a living wage, affordable housing, and do more to prevent crime, not just react after it happens? Or do you think the best way to make our communities safer is to do more to get tough on crime, like have stricter sentences, tighten bail laws, and put potentially dangerous people in jail? And overall, across the political spectrum, 53 to 47% of people said, I support fully funding the things that keep communities safe and prevent crime before it happens and not just react after. You pull out black voters, that went up to 64 to 36%, Latino voters, 60 to 40%. And I share this with all of you because this goes beyond the if it bleeds, it leads. People are actually really interested in hearing about the solutions that prevent crime in the first place and not just the big, awful headline. Those cases matter too. They will always get coverage. But this really tells us what people are really interested in hearing about crime and safety and what makes communities safe.
The questions I'd like you to think about as you're going through this part of the presentation: are police or governments being accurate and truthful with information they provide for your story, and how do you know that? Also, if you report that information, what potential misconceptions could surface by reporting just whatever police tell you? Have you verified that? Is this topic already misunderstood? Are there misconceptions about the populations you're about to do this report about? And so as we're going through some of these examples, I just want you to think about questioning everything. That's something I talk to my journalists on my team on a daily basis. How do we know what those officials are talking to us about is actually truthful? What's not being tracked? Maybe they have some information, maybe they have no information. Maybe they're supposed to have information, but they don't. And who else has the information you want? If the subject is about one law enforcement agency, but they won't give you that information, is there somewhere else you can go to get that same information, to tell that story in a more complete and accurate way? There's always been quite a waiting list in Texas, but in the last few years, it's gone up tremendously. Just in this last year, we have 2,500 people. It's risen since we did this last report in September. 2,500 people waiting in jail for mental competency restoration. And if they already have mental health challenges, they're languishing in jail and getting worse and worse and worse. Jail is not a therapeutic environment. And so while they're waiting, they may be sliding backward, and that's part of the big problem.